Thank you. I had the privilege of listening to my colleagues, Senator Hirono and Senator Blumenthal, who have been addressing this issue of sexual assault in the military. And both of them said so persuasively and articulately that our military justice system is broken because the sense of trust that a man or woman who's serving in the military today who is subjected to rape and sexual assault has been broken, not just between them and the assailant in their unit, but between them and their commanders. That in fact, that trust that their commander will have their back, that they will have these crimes be investigated and their perpetrators will be brought to justice has been broken. Even General Amos, Commandant of the Marines, said so. He said, "I can see why a female Marine might not report a case of sexual assault. They don't trust us. She doesn't trust the chain of command." This is our challenge, and we have to reform the system because these are some of the best men and women in the world that make our military as strong as it is. But we are subjecting them to not only these great acts of violence, but then the second heartbreak, the second re-victimization of having a military justice system that does not have their back, where they are convinced not to report these crimes because either justice won't be done or nothing will be done, or that they will be retaliated against for reporting. The number one reason 23,000 cases last year went unreported was because victims believed nothing would be done. They did not trust their chain of command to have these cases be prosecuted. The second reason they didn't report these cases was because they feared or they witnessed retaliation. And that's not surprising because of the 3,000 brave survivors that did report their sexual assault or rape, 62% were retaliated against. That is a huge number. So there's a failure within our military who has promised for 25 years zero tolerance for sexual assault and rape in the military. But as far as I'm concerned, all we've had is zero accountability. Because of those brave 3,000 survivors that did come forward, 62% retaliated against means those commanders failed to maintain a command climate where retaliation is not taking place. Now, our underlying bill, we're going to fix that. We're actually going to make retaliation a crime, giving commanders more tools to go after perpetrators of retaliation. But retaliation has always been against good order and discipline. It's never been acceptable, but still it exists. And too many victims do not come forward because they fear it. So what I want to do, Mr. President, which is what my colleagues have done, is I would like to speak on behalf of these survivors, these advocates, these champions, these leaders in reform. I want to tell their stories. They can't be here on the Senate floor right this moment, but I can be here, and I can speak their stories. I can tell you what happened to them. Sarah Plummer, raped as a young Marine in 2003, she said, "I knew the military was notorious for mishandling rape cases, so I didn't dare think anything good would come from reporting the rape. Having someone within your direct chain of command doesn't make any sense. It's like being raped by your brother and having your dad decide the case." Another survivor, Trina McDonald, who at 17 enlisted in the Navy. She was stationed at a remote base in Alaska. Within 2 months, she was attacked, repeatedly drugged, and raped by superior officers over the course of 9 months. Can you imagine that being your daughter? Can you imagine this young woman who literally wants to serve our country and even die for our country being repeatedly drugged and raped by her supervisor? She said, "At one point, my attackers threw me into the Bering Sea and left me for dead in the hopes that they would silence me forever. They made it clear that they would kill me if I ever spoke up or reported what they had done." Thank God Trina McDonald survived. because I will read her testimony from the United States Senate floor. She is being heard in this debate. Listen to Army Sergeant Rebecca Havrilla, served in Afghanistan, raped in 2007, said reporting the crime to her commanding officer was unthinkable. There was no way I was going to go to my commander. He made it clear he didn't like women. Or listen to Airman First Class Jessica Himes. She was raped in 2009 by a coworker who broke into her room at 3 a.m. She said, 2 days before the court hearing, his commander called me on a conference at the JAG office, and he said that he didn't believe the offender acted like a gentleman, but there was no reason to prosecute. Being raped and broken into someone's room, not being a gentleman, obviously that commander does not understand that rape is a serious crime. Quote, I was speechless. Legal had been telling me this was going to go through court. We had a court day set for several months. After 2 days and 2 days before, the commander stopped it. I later found out that the commander had no legal education or background, and he had only been in command for 4 days. Her rapist was given the award for Airman of the Quarter. She was transferred to another base. Now, many of those listening tonight will think this is just a crime against women. But one of the most disturbing facts is that more than half of these crimes are against men. It's not a gender issue. The crime of rape, sexual assault are crimes not of passion, but are brutal crimes. Are crimes of aggression, are crimes of dominance, are crimes of control. These are not cases of dates that have gone badly. Blake Stevens, now 29, joined the Army in January of 2001, just 7 months after graduating high school. The verbal and physical attacks started quickly, he says, and it came from virtually every level of the chain of command. In one of the worst incidents, a group of men tackled him, shoved a soda bottle up his rectum, and threw him backward off an elevated platform onto the hood of a car. When he reported the incident, Stevens says his drill sergeant told him, "You're the problem. You're the reason this is happening," and refused to take action. Blake said, "You feel trapped. They basically tell you you're going to have to keep working with these people day after day, night after night. You don't have a choice." His assailants told him that once he deployed to Iraq, they would shoot him in the head. They told me they were going to have sex with me all of the time when we were there. Now, if these stories aren't enough, please do listen to some retired generals, commanders, JAG officers, veterans who have known from years of experience that the status quo is an injustice to those who serve, and our approach is the right way forward. This September, 3 retired generals gave public support for our proposal, including Lieutenant General Claudia Kennedy, the first woman to achieve the rank of a 3-star general in the U.S. Army, Brigadier General Lori Sutton, formerly the highest-ranking psychiatrist in the U.S. Army, Brigadier General David McGinnis, who most recently served in the Pentagon as the principal deputy to the Assistant Secretary of Defense for Reserve Affairs. Lieutenant General retired Kennedy wrote me, quote, "Having served in leadership positions in the U.S. Army, I've concluded that if the military leadership hasn't fixed this problem in my lifetime, it's not going to be fixed without a change to the status quo. The imbalance of power and authority held by commanders in dealing with sexual assaults must be corrected. There has to be independent oversight over what is happening in these cases. Simply put, we must remove the conflicts of interest in the current system. The system in which a commander can sweep his own crime of a decorated soldier or friend under the rug protects the guilty and protects serial predators. And it harms our military readiness. Until the leadership is held accountable, this will not be corrected. To hold leadership accountable means there must be independence and transparency within the system, permitting professionally trained prosecutors rather than commanding officers to decide whether to take a sexual assault case to trial is measured first step towards such accountability. I have no doubt that command climate, unit cohesion, and readiness will be improved by these changes. Brigadier General retired Lori Sutton also wrote and said, "Failure to achieve these reforms would be a further tragedy to an already sorrowful history of inattention and ineptitude concerning military sexual assault. In my view, achieving these essential reform measures must be considered as a national security imperative, demanding immediate action to prevent further damage to individual health and well-being, vertical and horizontal trust within units, military institutional reputation, operational mission readiness, and civilian military compact. Far from stripping commanders of accountability, as some detractors have suggested, these improvements will remove the inherent conflict of interest that clouds the perception and all too often the decision-making process under the current system. Implementing these reforms will actually support leaders to build and sustain unit cultures marked by respect, good order, and discipline." Brigadier General David McGinnis, who also served as a Pentagon appointee, wrote this to me. He said, "I fully support your effort to stamp out sexual assault in the U.S. military and believe there is nothing in the Military Justice Improvement Act that is inconsistent with the responsibility of authority of command. Protecting of victims of these abuses and restoring American values to our military culture is long overdue." Retired Air Force General Major General Martha Rainville, the first woman in the history of the National Guard to serve as a state adjunct general, and served in the military for 27 years, including 14 in command positions, wrote, "As a former commander, endorsing a change that removes certain authority from military commanders has been a tough decision. It was driven by my conviction that our men and women in uniform deserve to know without doubt that they are valued and that they will be treated fairly with all due process should they report an offense and seek help or face being accused of an offense. When allegations of serious criminal conduct have been made, the decision whether to prosecute should be made by trained legal professionals. Fairness and justice require sound judgment based on evidence and facts, independent of pre-existing command relationships." That's the crux of the problem here. You have commanders who have biases. Maybe they don't want women in the military. Maybe they don't believe gay members should serve openly. Maybe they need or appreciate or like the assailant more. Maybe the perpetrator has done great things in battle. Maybe he's more experienced, more important. Maybe he's more popular. Those biases color decision-making, because when the decision-maker actually weighs evidence, one of the fundamental pieces of evidence in these cases is the testimony of the victim and the accused. If that commander doesn't value the victim because she's new, he may not believe her. When he sees the perpetrator as a family man with 2 kids, lovely wife, how would he possibly do that? He's been to Iraq 5 times. I don't believe her and I believe him. He's weighed the evidence through a colored lens. That's not justice. That's not fairness. That's not what our democracy is based on. We believe in justice being blind. We believe in the scales of justice not being weighed for the victim or the accused. Justice is blind. It's fair. It's impartial. It's objective. And if that decision maker is not even a trained lawyer, how do we hope they're going to get it right? Colored with biases, colored with self-interest. No commander wants to say the rape's happening under their command. That's a failure. It's a failure in military readiness. It's a failure in good order discipline. It's a failure in good command climate. Why would they want to report their own failure? Many times they don't. That's why the deck is stacked against the victims of these crimes in too many cases. Now, we've had a recent ruling that I think is incredibly important. The DOD, for 50 years, has had a panel. It's called the Dakowitz panel. It's a panel of advisors that are asked by the Secretary of Defense for the past 50 years to please tell him what policies and proposals are most important to protect and to support women in the military. The whole purpose of the committee is to look at this issue and say, what's the status of women in the military? How are they faring? Well, this panel actually has been studying sexual assault in the military for decades. They've actually been focused on it, having hearings, learning about it, opining on it, giving recommendations for a very long time. They've looked at this proposed legislation, they've studied it, and they've actually recommended every piece of this legislation to be passed by this Congress. They've actually recommended the decision-making go outside the chain of command. The vote for that proposal, 10 in favor, 6 abstained, none against. The 10 in favor, 9 out of 10, all former military. 5 of them senior officers. The one non-military was a woman who's head of the Women's Law Center. They want every aspect of this reform put into law. They are the experts. Even Secretary Hagel says he looks at this group with great regard, with high authority. He regards them as the preeminent advisory panel for women in the military. We also have a lot of support from other retired members of the military, retired U.S. Army Major General Dennis Leitch, retired Navy Captain Lori Manning, former JAG officer and Congressman Patrick Murphy, military legal experts Diane Mazur and Rachel Nadelson. Now, when the Dakowitz panel, the Defense Advisory Committee on Women in the Services, voted in support of the measure, they say they believe that these are the reforms that will make the difference. They say that they must implement these reforms to make sure the status of women in the military is protected. Secretary Hagel places a great premium on this panel. We also have the support of leading veterans groups who actually have served. They are veterans. They understand what happens. Quote, we want to be clear. A vote for Military Justice Improvement Act is a vote for our troops, a vote for a stronger military. We should listen to our veterans. So I think it's time that we restore trust. The military's had 25 years to deal with this problem. They've been saying zero tolerance for 25 years. They keep saying we've got this. They keep saying we can handle this. Just give us more time. Well, if this happened to my son or daughter, how much more time do you need? How many more thousands of victims are going to be raped and assaulted in the military and have no hope for justice? How many more good men and women are we going to lose to sexual assault and rape who are retaliated against and pushed out, being told they are the problem? How much are we going to lose in terms of military readiness, in terms of unit cohesion, in terms of troop morale, in terms of good order and discipline, to the scourge of sexual violence in the military? I don't think we should wait another day. I don't think we should wait for another panel, another report, another study, another. We have boxes of studies over the last 25 years making recommendations. But until you create a transparent, accountable military justice system, you don't have a hope of solving this problem. Until you give the decision-making authority to an actual trained lawyer who is not biased, you don't have a hope. All of our allies have done this, all of them, the ones we fight side by side with. Israel, the UK, Canada, Australia, Netherlands, Germany, these are allies. They said, if it's a serious crime, let the decision maker be unbiased. Let the decision maker be trained. Did they have a fall off of good order and discipline when they let these decisions be made by trained prosecutors? They told us no. When we tried to repeal Don't Ask, Don't Tell, military commanders said you can't possibly do this. This will undermine good order and discipline. When we wanted women to be able to serve in the military, They said you can't possibly do this because of good order and discipline. When we integrated the armed services, Commander said you can't possibly do this. It will undermine good order and discipline. Well, we did it. We did every single one of those reforms. Congress had an action. Elected leaders had a responsibility. We provide oversight and accountability over the Department of Defense. It is an important relationship. And sometimes we may have an idea or a reform that can make the difference, that can make our military stronger, that can utilize all of our best and brightest. Don't ask, don't tell, we lost 10% of our language speakers, foreign language speakers, because of that corrosive policy. How many thousands are we going to lose to sexual assault and rape in the military? How many? How many good men and women? Losing one more is too many. I ask my colleagues to support this bill. It's not a Democratic idea. It is not a Republican idea. It is a good idea. It is a common sense reform. It makes perfect sense when people learn about the issue and want a solution. This is what this place is supposed to be about. It's supposed to be people of goodwill coming together to solve problems, to make a difference. We need leadership here. We don't need followers. We need leaders. We need people who will do their job and provide oversight over the Department of Defense, especially in an area where they've failed so much. This reform will make a difference, and I urge my colleagues to support it.